Welcome Aquarius to your in-depth monthly horoscope for January 2024 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs particularly relevant to your sign. Now the 21st of January is a key date. Pluto arrives back in Aquarius. It had that 11-week period last year. This year it's 38 weeks in your sign. But it also links with the Sun. Also that day, Mercury emerges from its post-retrograde shadow. So that's a very important influence. But also your progressive modern ruler, Uranus, comes out of its retrograde on the 27th. There's also a full moon as the moon in Leo goes face to face with the Sun in Aquarius on the 27th. So I've got so much exciting news to share with you. As we make our way into year 2024, if you would like to understand what this will mean for you in a totally individual way and ascend above this zodiac broadcast, please give me 3 pieces of your birth data of time, date and place, or date and place if you don't know your time, and I'll produce for you your 12-month forecast. This will be a full 12 months from the time of your order, unless you order in the latter part of 23, and I'll give you the rest of that year for free. But along with your 12-month forecast, which will give you searing insights, you can also get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. That gives you a much more intimate understanding of the influences that have played out in your whole life and how you can work with them. Also, you'll get your zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, your Indian Vedic forecast and your Chinese forecast for year 2024, all free of charge. Please see the link beneath this video for more. So Aquarius, as you make your way into the new year, as ever, the Sun is located in the 12th house, which can be a low energy time. Also, of course, Pluto is in this area, as it has been all but 11 weeks for the last 15 years. So that's been a colossal journey, and it's going to reach something of a summit on the 20th of this month. But the other thing to tell you is that we also have 3 planets in Sagittarius as we turn into the new year. So that's really interesting. One of them, Mercury, detrimented in Sagittarius in retrograde, goes direct on the 2nd, very close to the hustle bustle Mars. Now that combination throughout year 2024 is going to give your communication a lot of extra dynamism and lots of extra passion. Expect to mix and mingle. But also Venus, the planet of relating but of money, is in the free-spirited Sagittarius as well. What's not to like? Well, it's the 2 planets residing in your 2nd solar house, your traditional ruler of Saturn and Neptune. Neptune squares up to Mars and Mercury, and Saturn squares up to Venus. So as much as the 11th house can be very joyful, very much to do with the network that we have, I feel that what those 2 influences of Neptune and Saturn are saying is you need to be aware of the money, of your budget, but also your values. Often very important to Aquarius because Sagittarius people have a similar kind of vibe. See the big picture like Aquarius people. Very free-spirited, independent. You can see the commonalities. But the 11th house is also about where we're heading in our long-term future. And there may be a sense as you turn into this new year that things are not going at quite the pace you want, which could create some frustration. But I want to reassure you, because although Saturn checks Venus, it also checks the position of the moon, which is in your 8th solar house. So money could feel a little bit tight, or it's possible that you've learnt some big lessons about certain people's approach and attitudes in your friendship circle over the festivities, and some of those lessons may be leaving you feel a bit rueful. But if we take the midpoint between the moon and the sun, the moon in Virgo, the sun in Capricorn, it's actually at 8 degrees in Scorpio. And the significance of that, Aquarius, is for you, that's house 10. So what I'm telling you is, despite the early maybe inhibitions, a little bit of a blockage, maybe money being a little bit tight, that midpoint and that ability to connect to people, like-minded people who share your values, could absolutely supercharge your prospects for the whole of year 2024, not just this month. So keep the faith if it does seem like it's a bit of a sluggish start to the year. It's also possible that you had such a sociable time over the festivities, the thought of getting back into a more regular routine could be a little bit grim. But then, if you're like me, I quite like routine. I know it's a bit dull, isn't it? But once we get back into our routine, energy starts moving around again. In this job, you don't get a lot of time off anyway. So if other people are moving around, you feel that energy, and that's good. So bank holidays can feel a little bit sort of desolate if you do work from home. So I feel things are going to spark up, especially when Mercury goes direct on the 2nd. And you could hear some news from someone, but Mercury is in that right angle with Neptune through to the 12th of this month. So if you are wanting to work collaboratively with somebody, do drill down into the details, because although Mercury goes direct, it doesn't actually come out of shadow until the 21st of January. So there may be something that is a bit hazy that you can't quite get the exact answer to, but be persistent. Use the energies of your traditional ruler, the grumpy old Saturn, to keep asking those questions patiently until you get the answers you want. But on the 4th, Mars moves into house 12. Mars in the 12th house is not the easiest hoe, to be honest. This is going to last just over 6 weeks. Mars here has a tendency to stir up things that we may not be very conscious of. For example, past resentments and attitudes that have got squirreled away deep within our psyche. Do you actually believe emotions are in our bodies? I actually do. I feel they can be trapped there. If you ever do any Gestalt breathing work and start letting stuff go, it's amazing how much the tummy goes glug, 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 and suddenly you feel a bit lighter. So I do feel that we trap things away. The key with Mars is, of course, it can be about anger, and it can be about resentment and bitterness. It is, after all, the lesser malefic, so it does have a downside, but it also has a very positive guise in the sign of Capricorn because it's exalted here. Don't underestimate anything you're doing behind the scenes, because I can assure you, once you get to the 21st of January, things are going to be go, go, go. So if at the start of the month it does feel slow, 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 sorry, I couldn't resist that. Just try to take that in your proverbial stride, because Mars in the 12th house can give you the determination to quarry down into the subject matter that other people might be a bit disinclined to do. In other words, doing your research. It may be that if you're wanting to use Mars's influence in Scorpio rather than Aries in a more psychological context, you could use Mars in the 12th house to do some very, very deep self-analytical work. Watch some videos to do with self-help guides. Just really think about what you're wanting from this year. You don't have to have it all sorted by the time the chimes of Big Ben come to an end on the first minutes of 2024. It's a working matter. And Mars also goes on to forge a tremendous angle to Jupiter from the 7th through to the 17th, exact on the 12th. These two together, the lesser malefic and the greater benefic, are really encouraging each other on. You could discover with Mars's help and its more scorpionic feel some hidden qualities, some hidden drives, some desires. You may even find yourself wanting to really engage in sort of detective stories and anything to do with a little bit of escapism, but maybe has a little bit of an edge, or maybe even a little bit of a sexual side to it as well. That kind of Mars in the 12th house. Is there someone that you secretly have quite the thing for? Maybe you'll be thinking about them a lot through to the end of this month. But on the 11th, we have the Capricornian new moon, but that links with your modern ruler of Uranus in a very, very dynamic and positive way. Now, if Uranus has had anything like the effect it's had on my life over the last few years, because we've now moved 3 times in 3 years, and also each of those times is a renovation, absolutely incredible. And just so you know, Pluto will be moving over into my 4th house in equal house, but in Placidus it will be house 3. But there has been a huge amount of shift going on with Uranus shaking up the 4th house. What about you? Share your thoughts with me. Have you moved? Have you changed where you live? Have you needed more space? Have you got better at being more intimate with people? Aquarius people usually need a little bit of time to themselves. Have you been pushing back on that, trying to challenge that? Have you deciphered some family dynamics with Uranus in the 4th house? How? There could be more to come in the following month, particularly as Mars and Jupiter are linking so brilliantly across the same 2 signs. So 12th, 4, deep thoughts, the psychological realm can feed your sense of security. 14th, Mercury back into Capricorn, left on the 23rd. Now this is going to be the last but one of Mercury's transitions, if you like, from the retrograde period in an earth sign this year. The next one is going to be in August for 10 days through Virgo, but of course it is travelling forwards now, but it's going to come out of its post retrograde shadow on the 21st. But Mercury moving into the 12th house can also be a bit of a deep thinker, can be quite analytical, can find it a bit difficult to join in. So whereas there may have been the desire to be more sociable as you went into the new year, even if there may have been, you know, some financial restrictions or maybe some concerns about other people's approaches, you may actually, with Mercury returning to the sign of Capricorn, think that, yeah, I'm going to take some time out, and that time out will last exactly 1 week. Because during that week, Venus has advanced in Sagittarius, but it too is getting caught up in the mystical, confusing web that is Neptune. So maybe as again, your values may not quite align with someone in the way that you want, which could leave you feeling a bit drained and a bit disappointed or even a bit disorientated. But on the 20th, the sun is going to move into Aquarius, but only later in the day, because initially the big standout aspect is the sun conjunct Pluto. It ain't going to happen again in this sign for many, many moons, and you and I won't be here to witness it. But if you have really gone through the mill since 2008, particularly if you have got angular planets, so cardinal planets, so if you've got planets in Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn, or any of those, as well as having had Pluto going for the 12th solar house, I feel it may have been very, very difficult. And the thing with the 12th house is that sometimes we find out the people that haven't got our best interests at heart, but we don't see it until the last minute, because they're not necessarily going to tell us. They're secret enemies. That's what traditional astrology says. So that's where Pluto's being, the power planet, which likes to act secretly. It's the deep state, isn't it, of astrology. It doesn't necessarily reveal its hand. So sometimes there may have been maneuvers, machinations by people that we've encountered professionally in the family with friends, where we didn't see that we were actually being ghosted out in the most ruthless but cold but stealthy way possible. And also with that disruptive energy of Uranus in the 4th house, another challenge. Again, it depends on where planets are in your natal horoscope, not just in terms of a zodiac perspective. But I think there's something to celebrate later that day, the arrival back after 11 months of the sun in Aquarius. And Pluto and the Sun get together again as Pluto moves into Aquarius on its birthday on the 21st. So the symbolism of this is absolutely enormous, particularly if you are interested in the concept of the age of Aquarius. I know we had that first blush of 11 weeks last year. It's 38 weeks this year. Okay, it's going to reverse back into Capricorn 2nd of September to the 19th of November. But it's going to be in Aquarius for the long term. And we're seeing a lot of innovations come in. Some of them to do with medical aids could be fantastic and see a lot of disease developing before we necessarily could have seen it with more traditional diagnoses. But of course then there is artificial intelligence, robotics. Have you seen those things where people are driving in cars in Los Angeles and there's no one in the steering wheel? What's the point if we depopulate people from jobs where they can have human contact? I don't really feel that makes sense, because initially the price will drop, but it will go back up again because profit is such a driver, pardon the pun, in this particular scenario. So we're going through a massive shift, aren't we? But we've gone through the agricultural revolution. We went through the industrial revolution, the first one, which started near where I used to live, in Ironbridge in Shropshire. Incredible if you go there now. It's such a sort of very pretty scenic place, but that's where all these brilliant engineers were knocking out all this steel, transforming the country through canals and railways ultimately, and so forth. But what are we going to get as an Aquarius group from Pluto moving into Aquarius? Well, if you do have your sun early on, I think it's going to be massive. And I have my sun at 30 degrees, 30 minutes in the sign of Aquarius, so it's going to be huge. And maybe that has been that regeneration of where I live, along with Uranus. It had to keep happening until Pluto moved me to the place that it felt really the right place to be. And maybe that's going to play out for you. It depends on what house it's in your natal horoscope. So say in my Placidus chart 3 = 4. Let's see what happens. Going to be fascinating. Should say for the whole sign into use as. Of course you know that it was house 4. My ascendant 23 Libra. You go back to 0 degrees Libra to get whole house, And how will it play out for us all collectively? Well, I feel that if you have felt that there's been a lot of betrayals over the last 15 years, this is going to be a time of really wonderful new beginnings. Venus moves on the 23rd to replace Pluto in Capricorn. Earthy Venus in Capricorn, wow. Charm can get you everywhere, but the 12th house does point towards maybe a secret dalliance, or maybe a relationship comes to a close that isn't working. The full moon on the 25th could see someone accusing you of being too single-minded with what you want to achieve. Well, sometimes in life we really do have to focus on what's right for us. So that might be a bit rich to hear that, but Jupiter T-squares the two positions. So I think on the whole, that's going to be a soft landing full moon, because Jupiter can be so generous in the 4th house. Also worth telling you that all through this month, Jupiter and your traditional ruler Saturn are in a great alliance, which is going to go on till the 25th of March. It was there the last 2 weeks of 23. Jupiter growth, Saturn in some ways restriction, but in other ways much more structures. So sensible growth. Saturn in house 2, use resources carefully, be thrifty, and there could be good positive changes coming with where you live, the structure of where you live, whether it's you're redoing a bathroom or you're having to put a new roof on like we did, or it is something more internal. The 4th house can be very much in our internal world and our relationships with our closest alliances. So there could be some really good stuff coming from Jupiter through the first 3 months of this year. So that pretty well sums it up, Aquarius. Yes, the Sun, I should say, in Aquarius is squaring up with Jupiter from the 24th to the 29th, which of course that full moon sits within. I can be really generous. I really like Jupiter square the Sun. People who have that tend to be quite bubbly, sometimes generous to a fault. Could see you inviting someone around and, you know, playing mine host, cooking them a lovely meal, and nothing will be too much of a problem for you, because you just want to bless them with your generosity of spirit. So really lovely. So it's an incredibly powerful month with that shift of Pluto along with the Sun on the 21st. And I'm wishing you all the best for year 2024, Aquarius. Thank you for all your support to me. And if you would like to have a one-to-one with me, please see the link beneath this video, or please like, comment, share, or subscribe.